You can absolutely conquer whatever it is you choose to confront. In this show, we talk PTG, we listen and believe, we support and empower. Whether you have experienced domestic violence personally or not, someone you know has. Your circle of family, friends, acquaintances, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence at some point in their life. Physical abuse is only one of the many forms of domestic violence. Survivors also report experience of verbal, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, electronic, and so much more. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It can leave you traumatized and devastated, mentally, emotionally, financially. You can find yourself homeless, jobless, helpless. The list can go on. There's blankets of insecurities, triggers, doubts, and other residual effects that become hurdles that impact our life as we do our best to move on. Many people associate butterflies with a sense of freedom. We've been taught along the way to focus on the transformation that takes place inside of the cocoon. I invite you to take a moment to conceptualize all the odds the caterpillar was up against and needed to defeat in order to get to a safe place, to build its cocoon and actually experience the transformation. My name is A. Garcia. I am a mother and survivor of a double attempted homicide. Now, I'm dedicating my life to take yours to the next level by experiencing post-traumatic growth to begin a new chapter in your life. Let's get started on this journey together. Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code. Garcia here. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Confronting Domestic Violence. What we cover is not intended to ignite any triggers. For what you want to conquer, you must confront. Today, I have a guest who is willing to openly share their story, their struggles, and their triumphs. Many of times, it has been another person's experience that can become a life-saving resource for others. So today, I just want to thank you so much and welcome Daniela to Confronting Domestic Violence. Hi, Daniela.
Hi, A. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on here.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It is a true privilege to have you on this network right here. We are reaching so many women and we have so many listeners. And there is a true journey of post-traumatic growth that you have walked. And it was no trip to the park per se. And we are all ears.
Oh, thank you for that. And again, thank you for having me on. It's an honor. Yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in a very traditional Italian family and very strict. My dad was very strict with me, so I wasn't really allowed out. It was like school, home, school, home. That was it. And doing things with learning how to cook and doing things around the house and just traditional things that Italian families do, going to grandmother's on Sunday and this. I had a great childhood. I really did. I had a great childhood, 2 great parents that were always there. Being strict the way that my father was, especially with me. I have a brother who was the typical son that was allowed to have all the freedom and do whatever. And I was the one that was like, no, you're not going anywhere. I left home at 18. Fast forward, I left home at 18. And it was like letting a lion out of a cage, right? Because even though my dad taught us a lot of lessons, and if anyone knows me, they know they'll always hear me say, my dad this, my dad, he taught us a lot about life and experiences. But until you experience things, you don't know, right? Until you're really in it. So I left home and moved in with friends of mine, and that's where I met, my first boyfriend, I guess you could say, because I was never in a relationship or anything like that leading up to that. And he was like 12 years older than me, and at first, being young and naive, you think you're in love, of course. You believe everything they say. And I got sucked in really quickly. And he was Italian, so I'm like, oh, my parents will love him. And they met him once. And of course, he's a charmer. And they were like, oh, yeah, he seems like a nice guy. But then after that, I should have saw, and I will share some of the red flags that you should see. within 2 months, he gave me like a 2 carat diamond ring. He wanted to get married. He was just like really moving really fast. But to me, being 18, that was exciting. I was like, oh wow, this guy's really crazy about me. And then everything else, you notice how they want to isolate you. I was very close to my family, and it turned to where I wasn't even seeing them for like months at a time, and isolating me from certain people. And here's the whole thing: the psychology of an abuser is they do this because they know if you're around family who cares about you or friends, those people are going to say, hey, what are you doing with this person? They see what's going on and they're going to try to talk you out of being with them. Of course, the abuser, being the controlling personality that they are, doesn't want that. So they isolate you from being around anyone that's going to do that. And another reason why I had to stay away is because of the abuse. It was visible, right? So I couldn't go to my dad to see my parents because of if I had a black eye or I had a bruise and things like that. I had broken ribs at one time. So there was no way I could go there like that. And the stress showed. I'm not a tiny person. I'm 5'8", right? And I was at one time like a little over 100 pounds. That doesn't look normal on somebody built like me, right? So I remember even specifically going there one time, and my dad thought I had a disease. He was like, "Are you sick?" Just looking at me, just looking skeletal, but it was just not the normal Italian girl who ate good and didn't look healthy anymore. So it put a strain on my relationship with my family because I stayed away. Things like following me, having me followed, and at one time running me off the road while I was driving my car, and just really crazy things and manipulative. They're very manipulative. He played this mental game with me like he was going to kill himself if I left. And one time, because I had been down the street at my friend's house, and he shot a gun while I was on the phone, and I thought he shot himself. So my friend and I quickly like just ran out the house and ran down the street to his house, and he didn't. He shot a gun out the window. That was just to make me think. It was just these crazy things that went on. And again, at that age, what do I know? So the psychological game that he played just really took a toll on me mentally and physically. And this went on for about 3 years. And I just had the courage just one day to just leave. And unfortunately, I ended up in another abusive relationship. And this all kind of stems from low self-esteem and low self-confidence, right? Because if I had that confidence in myself and really thought highly of myself, I wouldn't be tolerating behavior like that. And that kind of goes back to my childhood where, I grew up, like I said, wonderful parents, but there was always this like comparison with me and my brother, right? So I had a low self-esteem. Oh, my brother got straight A's and he always excelled in academics and everything he did. And I did okay in school, but I wasn't like getting honors, and that just wasn't my thing. So you get that mentality like where I'm not so smart, or I was always self conscious about my looks. And as a young girl, you know how that is. You're always looking at actresses or models and this and that, like, oh, you think that's what you're supposed to look like. So I put a lot of that pressure on me as well. But yeah, after that, I ended up in another abusive relationship, and that went on for about 4 years. And again, saw the signs at the beginning, very beginning, and just I don't know for whatever reason chose to ignore it. Looking back, like they say, is hindsight is 2020, and I don't know if it was just the attention or just wanting to get away from that first relationship, went right into another, and that was just as bad, just as abusive. Until again, one day, I got the courage to just, you know what, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. Got out of that, just moved on, but then moved on to a relationship that was a healthy relationship that lasted 22 years. Yeah, and I raised my son and had a business. And that's where like my passion for cooking really came in. I know we can get into that after, but that's another story. But yeah, so that's pretty much the shorter version of the two abusive relationships that I lived through.
So let me ask you some questions around that. What did you go through, or what like was the wake up call when you were like, you know what, this is my threshold. This is where my boundary lies. This is the line right here. What was that? How did you recognize that like within yourself?
Yeah, good question. And it's so long ago, and I'm thinking back to that person that I was, right? And it's so hard to even comprehend like what I was even thinking, right? Because of who I am now, I'm not the person that would ever put up with that for even a millisecond, right? I think it was more, I just realized this is not how I grew up. This is even where I had lived. at that time with my friends, even how they lived. I had to look at myself. I'm like, this is not how I grew up. This is not nice people, but it's not. They didn't have the values and the way they were raising their kids and just what I seen. It was just totally opposite of what I grew up in. And I had a moment. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I living this way? This is not, and I know I could have went back home, but the way I was raised, my dad was very independent, very taught us like, hey, in the old saying, you make your bed, you lie in it, right? So I was not going to go back and try to go, and not that I couldn't have, but I didn't. They didn't know what was going on. They had no clue. I didn't. I don't. I wouldn't say they probably had a clue like something wasn't right because of how I wasn't coming around like usual, but they didn't really know what was seriously going on. But I just knew myself, this is not me. This is my values, and I had to move on. And the second relationship, not, so much about that. It was just that I had enough because I had a child at that point, and I'm like, I will not have him grow up seeing this.
And you made a few statements that provoke thought in me. And that first and foremost, you said that a lot of things stem from childhood, which indeed they do. And it sounds like you were raised in a really respectful home with both parents, the mom showing one way and then the dad showing another way. But somewhere in there, you as a sibling
Mm-hmm.
compared yourself to your brother. Not that you were being compared from your parents or by your parents, but it was
Mm-hmm.
something that you, I don't want to say invented, but did on your own.
Not exactly, because my mom did. My mom did make it very known. Look at your brother; he's on the honor roll. Oh, look at
Okay.
him; he's doing this. Oh yeah, so it was. I didn't create that. That was a
Okay.
fact that even other family members saw. And I'm not disrespecting or saying anything about my mom because you know what? She was a wonderful mom. I don't even know if that wasn't even, I think, her intention. I think sometimes
Right.
we people do that without even realizing. She loved me, took care of me, whatever. But yeah, she had that way where even other family members would notice. They're like, oh my goodness, the way she's with your brother. You know what I mean? He could do no wrong, doesn't matter what he does. And then me, it would be like real quick, yep, she did it. You know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, it was very obvious. You carry that. And I'm the type of person I internalize. I used to never speak up, never. I would just, even as a young person, my dad, if he was like lecturing me or I did something and I would just sit there quiet and he goes, go ahead, you can speak, you can say something. I'm like, no, I'm good. Even though I wanted to, but I'm like, no, I don't think so. And now I'm like opposite. I have to speak my truth. I have to vocalize what I feel because internalizing things like that caused a lot of what I dealt with in my after my I left my second relationship caused depression, anxiety, eating disorders, suicidal thoughts. All of these things manifested from, and also what I didn't share when I was 19 years old, I was sexually assaulted in my sleep. So this was in between these relationships. So that, honestly, what I always share is that affected me more than both of those relationships put together because that was such a violation of me, of something that I didn't give, like being in those relationships. I knew what was going on. I chose to stay. I did not give you permission to do what you did. You just took it.
And that, so that was not a relationship. That was something outside of a relationship.
Yeah. And again, in the home that I told you I was living in where I really didn't belong, they had a family friend. To make the story short, they had a family friend that would come around and visit the mother. And I had been working. I came home. I must have been exhausted. And I just fell asleep on the sofa. And I had to be in the deepest sleep because when I woke up, I didn't actually open my eyes, but I'm laying there and I hear talking, and it was her and this family friend. Somehow and to this day, I really don't understand why she even thought that this was normal, that I was laid on the couch. He was at my feet, had my feet on top of his lap with the blanket was over. What made her think that was normal for him to even do that? I wasn't even that close of a friend to him. So that to this day, like that really bothered me. She didn't even see anything because he treated them like he was like that guy. Oh, you need anything? Just that real, just family guy came around and tried to help out a single mom and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm laying there and I feel and not to be graphic, I had these shorts on and his hand was like about as far as up as it could be. And I thought I was dreaming. I seriously thought I was dreaming and I froze. And here's the thing I tell people, don't ever judge what you would do in a situation. Because even, domestic violence, oh, why didn't you leave? Oh, why didn't you do this? Until you're in that situation, you don't know what you'll do. You would think the first reaction would just be just jump up or whatever. I was frozen because at first I had to be like, what the hell is going on? I had no clue. I was like, this guy, I know him. Like, I couldn't even believe that this was happening. So it took me what seemed to be like an hour, was probably like a full minute and a half or something. And I just started like moving to show like I'm waking up, right? And right away I was like, hand just moved like that quickly. And then he's, oh, I'll never forget it. He was like, oh, Sleeping Beauty woke up. And I'm just like, and her two daughters were upstairs. And I immediately got up. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word to her. And I went upstairs and I went to the daughters. They were like 14 and 15 at the time. And I just told them what happened. And they were very outspoken. They came running down and they said, told her, do you know what he just did? And what? And they went through the whole thing. And of course he stood there and denied it. And me, even at that age, I thought, and again, not to be graphic, but if you were doing something like that, if his hand was where I'm saying it was, will it not have a scent? So that's exactly what came to my mind. He's standing there denying it. I called him out on it, and the mother was, and she's, get out. I believed it because it was just, you couldn't deny it. And why would I even? They knew me. I was like a sister to her daughters. I was like really good to them, and they knew that was what happened. But that traumatized me for a long time. I didn't share that with anyone for 30 years until I connected with Emilio, my husband. Did not share that, did not heal from that. I just buried it. And again, like I was saying earlier, the eating disorder and the depression and anxiety, like wanting to just end everything, came from unhealed trauma. As if you don't heal, if you don't deal with things, that will manifest into disease and many things. So it took me until 30 plus years to share any of that with anyone and then start. And that's where my journey with sharing my story started.
Wow. And first of all, thank you so much for sharing as much as you did. And we're all raised differently. And regardless of what we go through or how we feel, we always revert back to what we were taught and what we think is right or what we think is not right. And that really does come back to how we were raised. And you said that so many times through this interview today. And it's like, you were raised with morals, you were raised with integrity, you were raised with balance, you understood a lot as it relates to self-respect, but yet you still struggled with like your doubts and your comparison with your brother because you weren't at the stellar place that he supposedly was. And and here you are trying to figure out life outside the home, and you are constantly dealing with different people violating, disrespecting, crossing lines, and basically tearing apart every understanding that you did have of positive, peaceful,
Right.
grounding, boundary, confidence having women in the world. And because of, I would say, like social stigma that kind of carries into personal stigma, whether you call it pride or whatever, it prevented you from sharing with your parents and having an actual safe place to go, to the point that unknowingly, how would you ever think, or why would you ever think that something is going to happen to you at a place that you did feel safe with your best friends and their parents?
Yeah.
And it's so, after going through that, I can understand the emotional and psychological trauma right then and there, because you're trying to live a solid life, but you can't escape what you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly faced with, which is this negative violating scenario each and every time.
Right.
So how did you figure out mentally, because you're right, there's a that mind body connection 100%. If you continuously sweep stuff under the rug or suppress your stuff, it's going to come out in different diseases.
Yeah.
Stress is the number one killer, yet it's not a diagnosis. There's nothing that, it's not a
Right.
disability, even though it is disabling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you, and what were your outlets or your resources to be like, okay, this is not what I'm inviting, this is not who I am? How do I kind of transition from this doubtful place and confusing space into this confident, boundary building woman that you are today? Like, how did you get through that?
Yeah, thank you for that. It was a long journey. Like I said, I was in a relationship for 22 years before I connected with Emilio. And that was a healthy relationship. We built a business and raised my son, and I lived a very comfortable life. But again, that's when all these things transpired, the depression, anxiety, and all these things and thoughts. And I didn't know why. I really didn't know why. I'm like, I'm having a good life. Yeah, it made me, yeah.
I'm sorry, let me ask, do you think that it's because you were finally at this or in this safe space that your guards were able to come down and therefore the trauma kind of finally surfaced because you thought that you dealt with it, but now you're in this great place. And now that you're in this great place and it's safe, now it's like taunting and haunting and it has to be confronted.
Yeah, that's a good point because again, when I was going through all these things, I ended up on antidepressants for 15 years and all this stuff. But again, didn't really know why. Didn't think about the sexual trauma. Didn't think about those two relationships. Just was like, okay, I'm just going through something. But I just kept on because I was so busy raising my son and working our business. And I had another job. I worked for municipal courts and kept busy and just kept thinking, okay, I'm just going through a depression. Okay, I'm just feeling this way. And then it wasn't honestly until things started to shift in 2016 when my best friend passed away. And I just looked at that as, wow, life is really short. She was 42 years old, beautiful woman, had two kids and everything to live for. Finally found the love of her life like a couple years earlier. And I'm like, that really woke me up because the relationship I was in, like I said, healthy. He was a great guy, took care of us, everything. But there wasn't that connection. I wasn't fulfilled. I'm like, what is my purpose? What am I really doing? Especially when my son reached 18, he went into the Air Force. That's the only child I have. So I was like, he was my reason for getting up for 18 years. He was everything. Yeah, he was my buddy. Like we hung out, did everything because my ex would work like 24/7. So it was just me and him. So when he left, you really had to face some, yeah, you're forced to face some things. Like, what am I doing now moving forward? So when she passed away and then he's leaving home and it made me really, I'm like, wow, I had to really look at my life and I had to make the decision. I didn't want to hurt this person, but I knew I couldn't stay in that relationship because it wasn't fair to either one of us. If it was up to him, he would have stayed. But I knew I couldn't. So I made that decision in 2017 and I had to walk away. And then when I connected with Emilio, we went to high school together like 30 years prior, and something brought us back together at a time where I thought was the worst possible time, but apparently God had other plans, right? So he sure did. And he happened to be somebody I had a crush on all through high school. How weird is that? Of all people to put back in my life, somebody I had a crush on. So that it was just too funny. So I told him this, but connecting with him, he had gone through a lot of childhood trauma. So he opened up to me one day, and just like that, what I had been wondering, why the depression, why the anxiety, why this, why that, just snapped. And that situation that happened when I was asleep rose right to the top of my head, and I just spurted out. Now, 22 years, mind you, in my previous relationship, never came up. I never told this person. But just like that, because he connected, he shared with me his trauma, which was similar, but as a child, sparked that memory. And just getting it out and sharing that. And then what I did was write a letter because he wrote a letter to his abuser and he actually dropped it off. But me, I don't know if this person for me is even still alive. I don't know where he is. It doesn't matter. I wrote it out. I wrote how I felt, how it affected me, and I forgive him. And once I did that, it was like a weight lifted. It really did. Just from sharing it with him and then writing it out and saying, you know what? I'm letting it go now. You did not break me. I forgive you. And that was the end of that. And then the abuse relationship was sharing and starting to speak and getting into co-authorship and finally sharing my story in a book that led me to my healing journey and like where I am now with helping other women to do the same.
I love it. And I love that it was a sense of closure for you because Not a lot of people have the resources after going through such a devastating time, not in just a relationship, but relationships and life in whole. Not a lot of us have the resources or the ability to do an outreach and have the coaches or the counselors or the advocates to really help you through. Some of us do, and if it's free, it's momentarily and it's on the surface where, you know, a lot of the things, tools, and techniques that actually really do help and enable the change and transition, transformation does
Right.
cost, especially in today's society where back in the day, yeah, mental health wasn't even a thing. And like you
Mm,
said, you made your bed, you lie in it, you got
mm,
to figure it out, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and march forward. And today, things are different. Mental health is a thing. Confronting and dealing with your emotions is a thing. And like we talked earlier, mind and body connection really is a thing, even though you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist for your brain and a regular PhD for your body. Okay, fast forwarding to today's society,
yeah.
into today's world. And it's like, you wrote a letter to put the closure. You had finally your voice to speak to the perpetrator, to the person that you carried this, I don't like to say baggage, but luggage around for some time. And even though it didn't come out in that previous marriage, just that loving bond, vulnerability, and safety connection that you and your current husband had during that premarital status,
Yeah.
it brought such a healing to you and for you. And I'm a strong believer that when you do forgive the other person, you're
Right.
also releasing yourself from whatever guilt you carried and believing that you had any participation in being
Right.
victimized. And
True.
trusting yourself again is what I think personally is the biggest hurdle, because when somebody hurts you or somebody violates you, the
Mm,
trust issue all of the sudden is not with people. It comes from like within. You're doubting yourself.
yeah.
Why did I let this? Why didn't I see this? Why couldn't I this? But it's not any of that. You were taken advantage of while you were sleeping in a safe place. But it
Right.
wasn't until you were able to bring that to light with somebody that you bonded with, now your husband, and then writing that letter to close it off, were you able to seek that type of forgiveness for yourself, the weight lifted off for yourself. Obviously, that moved out of your way for the marriage, of course. And then really, really being able to put that solid closure to it for you to set yourself free and to
Right.
trust your personal judgment moving forward.
True. That's you just nailed it because I did have a lot of guilt after I'm like what I had shared with you, where I had went. These people that I live with is not in line with how I grew up or where I really should have went. And I blame myself. I'm like, why did I put myself in this situation? If I wasn't there and I didn't live there and I didn't be friends with these people, this wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have met this person. And but you have to let that go because it's not our fault. We didn't ask for any of that to happen,
That's right.
So yeah, I had to lift that weight off of me.
That's right. And there's this thing that I like to say. I don't like to say it, but
Mm-hmm.
it brings some shed some light to it. You're a victim when something happens to you that was out of your control that you didn't deserve. And you transition to being victimized once you accept that, acknowledge that, and put forth that forgiveness. And then you're a survivor when you know good and damn well that you're not tolerating that ever again in your life, and you know the signs.
Exactly.
And just because something happens physically or sexually or financially, there's so many different forms of abuse that comes, that walks the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And your intuition, going back to your roots, understanding what your morals and ethics are. I think that never losing that is a surefire way to keep your boundaries
Mm-hmm.
around you. And unfortunately, when we shift those boundaries or allow those boundaries to be crossed, then we have to hold ourselves responsible for what happens.
Right. You're
And
right.
what you have done to give back to the community, to help other women moving forward, please share that, because I'm dying to hear about it.
Yeah, you're not just hearing about it; you're a part of it. So yes, Behind Closed Doors. The second edition will be launching actually this Friday, January 6th, at our business book camp here in New Jersey. And A. Garcia is part of this book. What chapter do you have?
Chapter 10 for tenfold restoration, because I do believe that we can be restored after any destruction that takes place in our life.
Amen. Yes. So really excited for you and so honored that you chose to be a part of this project. And it's shedding light on domestic violence. And like A said earlier, this is not a book full of victims. This is a book full of survivors, right? Sharing their journey and what they went through, but more importantly, where they are now and showing how you can be a successful entrepreneur or you can find love again or and any you can do anything you want to do. Look what you're doing. If you read the stories in the first edition and then the second edition coming up this week, you'll be amazed at what these women have accomplished and read their stories of what how they started in their abuse, and it's amazing. Your story is just incredible. And look where you are now. And it's just giving hope and showing that, you know what, it is possible to get through the trauma and move forward and live a very successful, happy life.
Yeah, post-traumatic growth is a real thing. Too many people don't know about it. And so many people are fully aware of PTSD. And
Right.
I love to bring PTG to light. Post-traumatic growth is real. And for me personally, I believe that it's the strength and the wisdom that you receive or that is just instinctively curated as you go through your healing
Mm-hmm.
process.
Right.
And what we do and how we give back is a huge part of that. And I am super excited to be in this book. And it's such a relief to see that post-traumatic growth really truly is, like I said before, almost instinctive, because almost everybody in your book has done some amazing things from
Mm-hmm.
and because of that experience. And I also have this thing that I say, and please correct me if I'm wrong or give a good response if I'm right. After you go through some stuff, trauma, specifically after emotional trauma, specifically,
Right.
you may not know who you are. You may feel lost in who you are, but you damn Skippy know who you're not.
Amen. I like that. I like that. You know
And
what you will and will not tolerate ever again.
that's right. And when you realize who you're not, you can
Mm-hmm.
build your boundaries around that and
Mm-hmm.
take it from there.
Amen.
Our needs change when as our circumstances change. Personal growth is an ongoing thing until our last breath. And I just love everything that you've done. I know you talked about the book, and if you'd please share how food has become a healing resource for you as well, and how you turned that into a business too.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, food, like cooking has been a part of my life since I'm literally 7 years old. So, like I said, my dad was very traditional Italian, so I had to be in the kitchen with my mom, learning what she was cooking. But I never saw it as a chore. Watching her, my grandmother, who was straight from Italy, and I loved it from a young age. And then it transpired as I got older. Whenever there was a party or an occasion or whatever, it was always like, Daniela, can you make this for this? So I got into the catering thing. And then in my previous marriage, like I said, we had a business that was a food business for 20 years. So I have always been doing it, but now, and it's always been therapy for me. I didn't realize it. I really didn't realize it, but it saved me a lot of times because when I'm in this, like anyone else, like if you're an artist or whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you're in a zone. You like it just takes you somewhere else. So if I'm stressed or I'm having a bad day or I'm having just something coming up in my space that's just not healthy for me. If I'm cooking, I'm creating, and I'm just in a whole different mindset. And it is therapy for me. It really is. Sharing that with other women, like to find their gifts. Maybe it's not cooking, maybe it's dancing, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's whatever it is. Find what is therapy for you because it's not always medication. Okay, it's not always medication. It does not have to be medication. But I'm not knocking medication. If you need it, fine. But my thing is, I stopped taking the antidepressants. It's going on, I want to say, 6 years, and I just have to deal with things raw. You know what I mean? You know what? You're going to be anxious. You're going to be sometimes have a bad day and feel depressed. You're going to be upset. Face it, deal with it, and then let it go. Don't fight it because the more we resist, it'll persist. Face it. And I found a way to essential oils. They have been a huge help to me with my anxiety. There's always an alternative way if you want to take the healthy route. And I know you're really big on that, with the healthy alternatives.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am. So I'm a huge supporter of everything you're saying and all that you're doing. Absolutely. You can move a million times, but you live in your head. So if you don't get your mental house in order, where are you living?
hmm Yeah, exactly. So that's what, right now I'll be creating I would say it's coming out in about a couple weeks. I do have Daniela's Delicious Dishes, it's called. So I do food locally where I am, catering. But now I'm going to be moving to the online space where you can come online and I will show you how to cook and different recipes and food safety and just a whole array of things and my main thing now, which I have like a niche that I've niched down now, is to help busy entrepreneurs prepare healthy meals in 30 minutes or less. So that's huge for entrepreneurs who just don't have the time. By the end of the day, they're like, oh, I have kids that are hungry. My spouse is coming home or whatever it is. So that's what I'm going to be debuting really soon.
I love it. And for our listeners that may or may not know, I'll just reiterate that food is
Mm,
medicine. Food has everything to do with your mood, with your energy, with your focus, with so many things as it relates to your mental and physical health. I cannot wait to taste one of those yummy dishes.
yes, you have to visit.
I will. And I just want to thank you again for being here. And if you can give us your wisdom, your wounds to wisdom statement, and then your social media handles for
Sure.
people to reach out to and get to know more about what you have to offer, that would be great.
Awesome. Thank you, A, for having me on. It was fun. It was great. It was so insightful. I hope, that our message is impacting someone out there today that needs it. And my words to wisdom statement, as I always share with women that I work with in this space, is know your worth. Know your worth because obviously when we were in these situations, we didn't feel good about ourselves. We thought that this is the best that we can get. This is what we deserve. It's not. Nobody deserves to be disrespected. Nobody deserves to be treated, abused physically, mentally, and sexually in any kind of way. Know your worth. Know moving forward. And if being young and naive like I was, or a lot of these women were, when you don't know better because you haven't had the experience, don't be afraid to reach out to your family member, to a friend, to a school counselor, because these women are getting involved younger and younger,
That's
15,
right.
16 years old, and unfortunately they're very young and naive. But I'm going to quickly share when I first shared my story in a book and I gave it to my mom, I was petrified. I'm like, what is she going to think? Because in an Italian household, oh, what happens at home stays at home. So meaning whatever happened. So I created this whole thing. She's going to flip out and be like, why are you telling these things? And here's the thing. After she read it, she messaged me and she said, I read your chapter. And I was like, oh God, like expecting the worst. All she said to me was, why didn't you tell us? We would have helped you. That was it. Tell somebody. Just don't be afraid to share with somebody. Don't let it go years and years like a lot of us do. And know your worth. You are worth deserving of everything great in a relationship, in a job, in a career, whatever in your life. Just know you are valued.
That's right. And as you're saying that, it was like my heart skipped a beat because I'm like, I have a daughter and she knows my story and she's been a part of my life, of course.
Yep, of course.
And it's like we want to raise our children to be strong minded and strong willed and make sure that you say no and know your worth. And then I wonder if that is a part of why our own children do fear
Yeah.
telling us. And ultimately, just as you said, because I'm that same type of mom, oh my gosh, you better tell me anything that's not right, regardless of thinking that, oh, why would I be mad at you? No, things happen. And like we said earlier, we cannot control what other people do. That's a part
Mhm.
of being that victim, is that we cannot control what somebody did to us. But that
Right.
does not mean that we stay silent. We can seek that help.
Exactly. And there's so many more resources out there now than let's say 30 plus years ago when I was dealing
Yes.
with it. So many resources. There's really no excuse.
So I
And
have a question. Oh, sorry.
yeah, quickly, I'm sorry. There is a resource page in this book that I put in the first edition and the second edition. So anyone reading it, anyone needs to know where to go for that help, we put that in there for you.
And that's what I was going to ask is there going to be a third edition? Would you like to let people know where they could find you if they want to have a chapter in next year?
Sure. You can reach out at championofwomen@gmail.com.
Champion of Women. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on Confronting Domestic Violence, as our mission is to help real-time victims relocate with children so they do not have to leave all their personal belongings behind when moving for safety. For all of you, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And now you have all of Daniela's information and her inspiring story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code.